Let's look at another UK friendly carry, and this is a very lovely knife, I must say. Douris, Chastel, Navette, at least I think that's how it's pronounced. This is a French made knife, so the chances are that I am pronouncing that wrong. So, a very lovely little UK friendly carry, and one that's not that badly priced as well, I would say. £63 from Heine Haynes, not bad considering what you get. Now, this isn't that much different from a Swiss Army knife. In fact, it basically is. The only thing is, it's not. You know the whole story behind that. There's only a couple of companies that's allowed to call their product a Swiss Army knife, and that is Victorinox and Wenger. They're really the only two that's authorised by the Swiss government to call their product the Swiss Army knife. This is made in France, and therefore not a Swiss Army knife. But for what it's worth, it's very similar to a Victorinox Spartan. Speaking of Victorinox, let's bring in a couple of knives for comparison. I have the Victorinox Ranger and the Manly Wasp as a comparison here. So we can see it's not a bad size knife. It's a little longer than a Swiss Army knife, a bit thinner. I would say probably, you know what, it's actually a bit heavier than the Swiss Army knife. Let's move that over there just now. But we've got a very lovely knife here. Now, this model has the horn handle, horn for the scales. Now, there's a few versions of this knife. You can also get stag, and this also comes in a locking version. I think the locking version actually has a clip point blade as the main blade, but for what it's worth, they're basically the same knife with slight differences. We could see here that it does mainly have a pinned construction, a riveted construction. We've got a rivet holding the bail and the scales together, and a rivet right through here in the middle. Now, for some reason here we've got a screw, and we flip it over, we've got a screw with a rivet through it. Kind of unusual, not really seen that anywhere else. I think that's to tighten up that main blade, but I'm not entirely sure. That being one con of a riveted knife is you can't really take it apart for maintenance or anything. You can't adjust the pivot, so if it's too loose, tough, you can't really do anything about it unless you want a hammer on it, in which case you risk doing it too tight or damaging the scales. I mean, something like horn, you really don't want a hammer on that. You might crack it. Now, while we're talking about the horn scales, let's have a look at something here. If we focus in here on the scales and that brass liner here, which, by the way, I love the fact that it's a brass liner. It looks really nice. Brass is a great material for liners in my view. But we can see here some imperfections of where they've sawn it, where they've sawn the two halves. You can see that it's a bit raggedy. It's not too great. I've also noticed recently that you can kind of see the saw marks here in this little cutout. I'm not too fussed about the saw marks. In fact, I couldn't care less about that. But those sort of, this bit here, not really a fan of that. And we've got some here as well. Now, let's have a look at the tools on this pocket knife. To start off with, we have the main blade, which is a spear point, very similar to the ones on a Victorinox Swiss Army knife. In fact, let's get that out as well, just to compare it, because they're extremely similar. Although the Victorinox is a bit shorter. The steel on this knife is 12C27. Don't really know much about that steel, but I'm just going to assume that it's a carbon steel. I mean, I think a lot of the European knives are pretty high carbon, as is a lot of the English ones. In fact, I noticed that this looks like a lot like the steel that Arthur Wright uses. So I'd assume there's something pretty similar. I mean, I'm going to guess that there's a lot of chromium in that, considering that considering the sheen on that. If we have a look here closely, we can see some blade rub. Now, most of the implements on this tool does have that blade rub. That's not too much of a big deal. I mean, that's just going to happen on knives like these. Now, if we close that, next tool beside it is this combination can opener, bottle opener, which, if you really wanted to, it could also be a third knife. I would imagine that would make a good box opener as well. Other side here. Now, this some of the implements on this knife is a bit of a nail breaker. The easiest thing to get open is the main blade. Here we've got a sort of medium-sized flat screwdriver, which could also double up as a medium-duty pry bar or a scraper if you so wish. Good snap on that. And we've also got a small clip point, which is one of my favourite things about this knife. In fact, there's a few things that I really do like about this pocket knife. Clip point probably being number one. Also the handle scales are very nice, and also the awl, which we'll get to later. And I also like the fact that it's got a bail. Clip points being one of my favourite blade shape, as I have said plenty of times before on this channel. Now the Swiss Army knives, Victorinox and Wenger, they used to always do this. They used to always have a secondary clip point until for some reason they swapped out into a small spear point pen blade. I wish they would go back to the clip point. Now on the back side of the tool we have a corkscrew, which is, the turnings on this is a lot tighter than it is on a Swiss Army knife. Might have a look at that again later. Now this awl is definitely something I'm jumping about on this knife. The reason being is, look at the shape of it. It's pretty square on the inside here, and it's pretty rounded on the outside, and it's almost got a bit of a screwdriver shaped point on it, but I would imagine that would work fairly well. I've not actually really used it, but it feels pointy enough that it will get the job done. Now I would actually really like to compare that to a Swiss Army knife so you can see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so here's the awl on the Swiss Army knife. So as you can see, very different. This is a lot flatter. This one actually is sharp. It does have an edge on it, and it has a sewing eye. Absolutely nothing wrong at all with this awl. In fact, I quite like it. I like it a lot. But this is something that I do wish that they would go back to for at least some of their products. Now, again, speaking of Swiss Army knives, in fact, hold on, let's have a look at that corkscrew in more detail. I did say that it was a bit tighter than a Swiss Army knife corkscrew, and I think there's a bit, maybe less turns on it. So this, I'm not going to sit and count it, but that looks like a 5 turn, this looks more like a 4. You can see there, Swiss Army knife's definitely a lot thicker. I would imagine this one being more effective. Not that it really affects me, I don't drink wine, I don't really have a use for that. An excellent little knife though. So let's just do some more side by sides on this thing. Now that's what I was going to say. If I was to compare it to a Swiss Army knife, this is very, very similar to the Victorinox Spartan. Now, the tool set, if you're not too bothered about who makes the knife or what the material is or whatever, but you still want a quality knife like this, you can't really go wrong with the Victorinox Spartan. I mean, you can get a Victorinox Spartan as low as 15 quid from some places. You quite often see them on Amazon for that. So if you're only interested in the tool set of this particular knife, you don't care where it's made or by who, what the materials are, the Victorinox Spartan will do you just fine. In fact, you'll get some more tools on the Victorinox Spartan. An extra screwdriver plus the addition of a toothpick and tweezers. So there's just a comparison between the Manly Wasp, the Douris, Chastel, Navette, which I'm probably still pronouncing wrong, and the Victorinox Ranger Swiss Army knife. Well, that pretty much concludes the video on this pocket knife. Why not let me know what you think of it in the comments? Do you like the knife? What do you think of the horn handle? I think the horn handle is really nice. I mean, when it comes to handle materials, you've kind of got two options really. You've got natural and synthetic. Natural being something like horn, wood, bone, ivory. Kind of on the fence about ivory. I don't really know if I would want to buy one with ivory. gonna have to think about that one. And you've also, I mean, you also get things like woods like ebony. Now, I kind of want to get a knife with an ebony handle, but ebony is endangered. So that, see, to me that's a difficult one. I don't really feel right about buying a knife which the handle materials is potentially a endangered species. So that's why I don't really want to buy one that's made of ivory, unless it's something like mammoth ivory, which is extinct. Then I couldn't really care less because the thing's already gone. Ebony, it's an endangered tree. Even though it's away over in Africa, or rather they didn't go extinct. So, and then you've also got synthetic materials like G10 or whatever this material is that Victorinox uses. I can't quite remember, but for what it's worth, it's basically some sort of acrylic. I mean, I think they call it Celador. I prefer a natural handle myself, so long as it's not an endangered species. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments on this knife. What do you think of that horn handle? In fact, what's your favourite kind of handle material? Do you prefer natural or synthetic? And if you prefer natural especially, let me know. Would you prefer wood, horn, bone, ivory? What kind of handle material do you like? Or do you prefer synthetic? G10, FRN? What do you prefer? Or what's that material that the old army knives used to be? Bakelite. Kind of like Bakelite myself on some pocket knives. Anyway, see you later.